Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leah Smalley. I'm the Assistant Director of Financial Aid Services at the Coordinating Board. And today I have Michelle Fairbanks on with me. She's a co-presenter, and I'll let her speak in a moment on the topics that she's going to be doing. But I'm so happy to have her here today helping out. And like I've mentioned before, a lot of my team is now getting involved with these webcasts so that they can start presenting on more topics that y'all want information on. So that's kind of the idea here, is to start beefing up our training and information sessions for the institutions. We're going to be wrapping up almost 3 years worth of webcasts, so that's very exciting that we've been able to go that long. So that's one thing I wanted to mention right off the bat, is we've been getting phone calls about a variety of topics, and we always go back in time and look through the webcast to find out what resources we have. So for sure, if you're new, again, we have 3 years worth of topics on there, different things that we've trained on and different information that's out there. So for sure, check out the webcast archives page on our Student Financial Aid Programs webpage. That is for sure an excellent resource for you to go back and hear some of those presentations. But without further ado, I'm going to get started on today's presentation. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. We're going to move forward to the topics of discussion. So the theme this week is out with the old, in with the new. And what I mean by that is we have the end of the fiscal year and the beginning of a new fiscal year. So first and foremost, we're going to be talking about how to request fiscal year 2022 funds. So some of you either need a refresher, maybe you're new. It's just a good idea to go through that, if it has anything changed. So the second thing is comptroller closure impacts. That's where I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, and she's going to go through that with you this year. Next, I'm going to be talking about some federal changes to state aid programs. If there's any impacts, I'm sure y'all are aware that a lot of things are coming out from the Department of Ed, so we're going to touch on that a bit today. Next, the FAFSA-TASPA high school graduation requirement, just a quick summary on that, and just more of a notification to the institutions. We'll touch on that in a moment. And then lastly, like we always do, we go through reminders, training, and updates to make sure that you're aware of anything that's on the horizon. So let's get started. So like I mentioned before, the FY22 is about to begin. The start of the fiscal year is September 1st of 2021. So there's only a few weeks left of the 2022, excuse me. FY 2021 is about to end. So to prepare for FY 22, I wanted to go over the funds request process. How do you get your money? Has anything changed? The good news is nothing changed this year. So everything should be the same as you've done it in the past. Should be straightforward, but I'm going to go through those options with you today so that you're familiar with them. So requesting money. The 3 grant programs, so Texas Grant, TEOG, and TEG, is still through the CB Pass grant payment portal. I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute, but again, that process has not changed. If you don't have that access or you're not familiar with it, then you can contact us and we will walk you through how to set that up. The College Access Loan and Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program, those are still administered through our HelmNet online portal. And that can be done either manually or through Common Line. I'll show you what that looks like. The bilingual education program and the educational aid exemption, both of those are requested through an online PDF form. And I'll show you what that looks like. Lastly, Texas College Work Study Program. These funds are paid upfront in a lump sum. So as soon as the fiscal year hits and we are ready to process those funds, any school that has opted in to participate, we will send you those funds in one payment, and then you draw down those funds and pay those through your payroll. So there's no request process necessary. You don't have to do anything, okay? So again, let's look at all the other programs just briefly, again, very high level. And if you need assistance on the process, you can always set up additional training with my team, okay? So the first one, grant payment system. Once you get access to grant payment portal, you simply log into your account, you hit my access, you'll see here on the tab, you go down to the one that's in your list, you can see grant payments is in there. When that pulls up, there's a menu bar at the top and you navigate over to request funds. When you do that, this box will pop up You select the amount that you're requesting and the total number of students, and you hit submit. That is all there is to it. Obviously, there's another workflow on our end. We'll get your request, we'll review it, approve it, and route it through. But as far as the grant request process, it's pretty much easy as 1, 2, 3. You can see it says actually 4 there. I like to 1, 2, 3 sounds more standard, right? So, okay, so that's the grant process. If you have access, you can start sending it through those requests so that we can have those ready to process once the new year hits. The second walkthrough here is CAL and TAS certifications. Like I mentioned, there's 2 ways to do that to get your money. The first is going to be the common line file through Move It. So if you have a Move It account or you have this set up automatically through your IT team, you can do those through the common line process. Many of our schools are still set up to do the manual process, which is through HelmNet. You log into your HelmNet account, you pull up the borrower, and you certify the loan through there, or the scholarship if it's tasked. So again, you do have options, but that's usually a year-round process. And then depending on when the loan period ends is where it drives what award year it comes out of for the coordinating board. So again, those are coming in every day. We get those all the time. So hopefully you don't have any questions, but if you do, you can always set those up with us. The next one is the manual PDF form. So I mentioned a moment ago, we have the educational aid program, and then we have the bilingual education program. So both of these require this to be filled out and submitted to the coordinating board. There's a submit button on the form. You just fill it out, you e-sign it, and you send it in. In the event the submit button doesn't work, we have instructions on the bottom in which you can scan and email that through. So that's another option. We do know that depending on your version of Adobe or even your web browser, sometimes the functionality between schools does not always work how we hope they do. So just know that you have alternative options when submitting this form. Another thing that's available, you'll notice on the form in red font, we have instructions on how to fill out this form. So for sure, if you're new or if you haven't done it in the last year, if you click on the hyperlink within the form, it will launch the instructions to walk you through the process a little more clearly. So that is the funds request process. Again, I'm not going to go through Texas College Work Study because, again, it's a lump sum payment, but those are the main ways that you're going to get money. You're either going to get it through the grant payment portal, through HelmNet, or through one of these forms. So we are requesting that even though the fiscal year has not begun yet, that you go ahead and start submitting those to us. That allows us to start the process once the fiscal year begins, and so we don't bottleneck and get things delayed in any way. But you can, all of these are available. Again, reach out if you have access. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be turning it over to Michelle to talk through the comptroller closure update and how that's going to affect when you're requesting money and how you get your money. So let me turn it over to Michelle. And Michelle.
Thank you, Leah. Thanks, Leah. I'm happy to be here with you guys today. Regarding those comptroller impacts, this year the comptroller will be closed starting August 31st from 7 p.m. through September 2nd at 7 a.m. Like Leah mentioned, go ahead and get your funds requests in. We'll begin processing payments for grants and special programs after Labor Day starting September 7th. So we certainly don't want you all to experience an additional delay. Okay. Regarding the College Access Loan and Texas Armed Services Scholarship Disbursement process, we are focusing on the acceptance of the loan approval disclosure, which initiates the disbursement process for TASP and CAL. Once the student's application is complete and school certification is complete, that's actually going to initiate that loan approval disclosure, and students can log into their online HelmNet account and accept the terms of the LAD or LAD. The business day after the LAD is accepted, we will actually mail the loan consummation disclosure, or LCD, to the student, which notifies them of their right to cancel. That right to cancel is a 7-day period. After that 7-day cancellation period has expired, then at that point funds can be scheduled to disperse. Generally speaking, once that LAD is accepted, funds are going to disperse to the school within 11 business days. We're going to take a look at that 11 business day standard disbursement schedule a little bit closer. So once a student has accepted their LAD, the following business day, on this day 1, the LCD is mailed to the student. Then we ask to allow about a 3 business day delivery time for the LCD to get to the student. We have a right to cancel period, which adds an additional 4 business days. And on midnight of the 7th day after the LCD is mailed to the student, that's the cancellation deadline. And then from that point, we do have an extraction period, which starts that pending disbursement process. That takes about 3 business days. In this example here on the calendar, we have a student that accepted their LAD on August 10th. Then we have our 7-day LCD cancellation period, which ends on August 19th. And then on the 20th, we start that 3 business day extraction, or that pending disbursement period. And then finally, on the August 25th, the funds are electronically dispersed to the school. Again, prior to that disbursement date, the extraction begins 3 business days prior to disbursement. Okay, regarding the comptroller closure, we are asking students to accept their LAD by August 16th, so that they're able to receive their funds prior to that comptroller shutdown on August 31st. Okay, bear with me here. I'm experiencing a little bit of a delay. Okay, and as a reminder, the disbursement date is that's actually set during school certification. It's tentative. The disbursement date is actually set when the student accepts the LAD, and so that original disbursement date can, come and go if the LAD is never accepted. So there are a couple of ways that a school can identify which students have not accepted their LAD. Financial aid administrators can use the HelmNet reporting feature to verify students that haven't accepted the LID by running that pending disbursement need documents report. Another way is to access the borrower summary tab and use the loan application checklist to verify whether or not a student has accepted the LAD. Here we can see on this last check mark that the LAD has been sent to the student. And then, of course, we see here that the LAD has not been accepted yet. We don't see a check mark next to that LAD accepted entry. And just as a quick recap before I hand it over to Leah, so you want to get your funds requests in so that we can start processing as soon as possible and ensure that there's no additional delay. And also, talk with your students to make sure that they accept their LAD to get the disbursement process started.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing. So hopefully y'all got some good information. I think the reason we wanted to focus in on this particular process is because each year we do get a lot of phone calls, not only from institutions, but students as well, a little bit confused on, well, what's happening? Why is there this delay? And so it's really nice to understand the back end process, because we know from the institution side of the house, all you see on your screen is a disbursement date, right? So it's kind of like, how can we access the tools online to really understand the back end timeline? So I appreciate Michelle going through that. And again, all of this information is located in the program guidelines, but sometimes it's nice to talk it out. So if ever there's a situation or you're not understanding why a status is not updating or funds are not flowing through, then you can reach out to us and we can troubleshoot for you. But I'd say a lot of the time, the majority of the time, a loan disbursement is going to be held up because of that loan acceptance disclosure that she went through. That is truly the trigger that will make the loan go through. And then there are those required waiting periods. So for sure, I think that the easiest way to do it is to grab a calendar, look at when the student signs or accepts that LAD, and then you do the math using that little chart that we have, that 11 business day. And again, like Michelle mentioned, because the comptroller is going to be closed, that creates a lag in when they will get their funds. So for sure, please use the reporting that's out there, pull all the students that are missing that LAD that they have not signed, and do an outreach to them so that you can avoid having a flood of calls saying, why is my money not here? I need my money. There's no way we can expedite that once that closure begins. It's going to create that little delay. So thank you again, Michelle. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to type those in the chat box, or you can wait till the end, or you can contact us directly. I'm going to be moving into the federal updates, which are the impacts of state financial aid. So let me move this forward here. We sent out a memo on August 5th, and that was to communicate some recent things that have come out from the Department of Education and trying to clarify how that's going to affect state aid programs. So the first thing that was sent out, which ones are going to affect you? Let me see this delayed, like Michelle mentioned. We want to talk about what things institutions can't modify and then what can they modify. So on June 11th, the Department of Education released a Dear Colleague letter that talked about 2 items. That first one was selective service. This was brought up on a prior webcast, and we also again sent this out to communicate that while the federal changes, they don't require selective service at this point, the state statutes has not been amended or updated or removed. So during this last 87th session, there were no changes to our statute. So at this time, schools are still required to confirm registration or exemption in order to award state aid programs. Now, keep in mind the FAFSA is still going to include selective service for the next 2 years. So you will be able to find that on the ICER, but we do realize that once that's gone, how will that impact schools? So we're working on that. We will have guidance to you, but at this time, it's kind of business as usual. Continue to do what you've always done, and there's no changes at this time. The other one is the controlled substance. The Department of Education said, they're getting rid of that question too. But just to clarify, this question for state aid has always been different. It's never aligned with the federal rule or requirement. So again, business as usual, nothing has changed. You'll continue to collect that or confirm that, whichever way you do. And just to remind everyone, it's only applicable to Texas Grant and TEOG, the Texas Educational Opportunity Grant. Because federal, it's for all of them. I think sometimes people just assume it's for all state aid, but it's only written into these 2 statutes. So that's nice. If you were thinking it was related to federal, it's only these 2 programs, and it's a different question. So that's why I wanted to make sure that that's clear, especially I know I moved here from out of state. And so when I first got to Texas, I was very confused on this requirement. I didn't understand that it was completely separate from the federal. So good to go back and read the differences on the language and make sure that your school is collecting this appropriately. So those are the things that the institution cannot modify at this point. But the one thing that you can modify is the most recent guidance that talks about ICER verification. So on July 13th, they issued another Dear Colleague letter to announce that they were going to provide relief not only to the schools, but to students in light of the national emergency that's going on. And so to lessen that burden and hoops that they have to jump through, They said that institutions can waive verification as long as certain things are met, and that they can still look and verify the EFC. So I shouldn't use the word verify, but they can confirm that there is a EFC to use. So all of the information that they released in that Dear Colleague letter should apply to state aid, so long as you can calculate the student's financial need. As a reminder, financial need for state aid programs is the cost of attendance minus EFC. So if you don't have a EFC, then you would need to take steps to at least get that for your ICER. Now, we have had questions about TASFA. TASFA is kind of its whole different process, different application. You know, how does it apply to that? And the response has basically been, you'll continue to use whatever process you do. If you need to modify it, you can, but as long as you have a process in place, again, where you can calculate an EFC using the federal methodology, then you can continue to do that. So you'll collect whatever documentation you need from that student, if you even do it all. Every school is different on how they process TASFA. But the main message here is that you can use the federal waiver for your programs in order to waive or to award state aid programs. Let me see here. Okay. So that is the update on the federal programs. As we get more information or guidance, or if we're going to do training on any of this, it will be communicated. But at this time, it's just to let you know these are the major changes. And the only one is verification. All right. So FAFSA TASFA, high school graduation requirement. Some people may have never heard of this. So if you follow the sessions closely or you work with school districts, you may have heard. But this is just a quick overview, just to make you aware of what's going on. So in the 86th legislative session, which was last session, so several years ago, they passed House Bill 3 into law, and that became Texas Education Code 28.0256. This law now requires that high school students, and that begins with 12th graders this coming fall, so starting with 21-22, they have to complete a FAFSA or a TASFA or an opt-out form in order to graduate high school. So they cannot graduate. They report that to TEA. They report it through the school district. So it is a requirement now. So the reason I'm bringing it up is because that starts this week or next week, whenever your students are beginning school. Your high school students in your area or that are applying to your school are going to need that verification to submit to their school. So I wanted to make schools aware that, one, you may see an increase in FAFSA and TASFA submissions if you haven't already. So starting last year, you may have seen an uptick, but students are going to be submitting those forms to you. And another thing is that they're going to have proof to submit to their school. So if they have not enrolled or applied to go to your school, you'll want to come up with a process to be able to provide that proof to them, especially if they're a TASFA student. Most students who do an ICER, they're going to be able to get that from their SAR report. They get an email from the Department of Ed. They can look on their student portal. There's a lot of options for a FAFSA student. Because the TASFA is a paper application at this point for the majority of the schools, there's really not a lot of confirmation that a student's going to get, especially if they don't apply to go to your school. So again, there's going to be a lot of different scenarios, and you're going to have students that are simply trying to meet their graduation requirement. So they're sending in an application to your school and possibly not intending to even enroll there. So those students, we've talked to different institutions, and they do different processes. Some kind of put them in a kind of like a electronic file, and they hold them there until the student enrolls, but they don't send them anything because of that. You know, they're not packaging them or doing an award letter. And then you've got other schools that process everything that comes through the door. They scan it in, they route it off, and that kind of thing. So this notification is just to put it on your radar. You may have students reaching out to you starting this fall, because as soon as they start their senior year, they're going to start applying to go to colleges and trying to meet their graduation requirements. If I get additional information or we start working with the school districts on how to implement this more smoothly, then I will reach out. There's not a ton of information out there at the moment on all of the different requirements. Each school district, similar to institutions, they can run things kind of how they want to. They create their own policies. So this is the first year this is rolling out, and this is purely just as a heads up. Just be informed that you may have a lot of high school students asking for some kind of proof that your school received their application. Okay, so let me see if there's anything else on this slide that I wanted to mention. There's not. Okay, moving on to the reminders, training, and updates. So as we've already talked about, I feel like we've said it like 10 times now. Funds request for FY22 is available. Please start submitting those if you're ready. That way we can start processing those after Labor Day ends. The other thing that we wanted to remind everyone about is signing your program participation agreements. Those are due by August 18th. There were a few inquiries on submitting that back to us. We have identified that there was an issue on our original memo. It had a typo in the email address for Deshay Reed. We have since clarified that all of the PPAs can actually be emailed back to Jody Lopez. She's the one that's sending those out via email. She's also collecting them. So if you can communicate that to whoever is doing the signature and sending that back, please send those to Jody Lopez. You don't need to send them to Deshay. If you do, no worries. We will route them to the appropriate place. I just wanted to clarify that that was identified as a typo, and that's why if you sent it in and you got a bounce back, Deshay is still there. It was just a oversight on her email address, and so apologies there. Okay, so that deadline, August 18th. The last thing here, FAD Cycle 2 is rapidly approaching. We have over 30 schools that have not even submitted a file at this point. So we are encouraging schools, please start doing that process so you can work through your student errors. As a reminder, you don't have to reconcile, but the validation is coming up on August 27th. So that's not a lot of time to work through the process. And we want to get those files in timely if we can. So if you're new to FADS or you're having issues, you have new software, whatever the challenges may be to submit your file, please let us know how we can support you. If you need additional training, we're happy to do that. But that is, again, it's only 2 weeks away, and we have quite a number of schools that have not even started the process. So we want to make sure that if you need assistance, that we can provide that timely to you. All right, so training, the next webcast is September 14th. We will have topics, we'll have, again, we will have started the school year. We'll have lots of things going on, so definitely tune in if you can. And then some updates, there's only one update this month. The college access loan deactivation will probably be a full topic next month, but I wanted to put this notice out there that we are testing and we're going to be rolling out a new batch process. And what it does is it deactivates any applications in the system that are more than 60 days old. And the reason that is important is because when you're going to try and review all your pending applications, they're just years and years old. They're just sitting in there, and I think it causes a lot of confusion. It bogs down our servers and everything else. So this will basically purge our system every 60 days so that we don't have old applications sitting in the system anymore. Again, as I get more information on the ins and outs of that process, it may become a future webcast topic. But as of right now, I just wanted to let you know that if you see a decrease in applications when you run reports in your system, that is why, because we finally got a new batch system. All right, so that is all I have. So let's touch on when you have questions, what do you do? You want to contact the student financial aid programs, we have various ways to do that. We have several phone lines. So the ones that you can share with students or the general public is we have our borrower services line. That's for your college access loan students or your Texas Armed Services Scholarship. They can call that 1-800 number and get assistance. We also have our Texas Financial Aid Information Center line that's dedicated to the state of Texas for people who are navigating through financial aid or applying to go to school. So we have that 888 number on there. That's also the number you'll find on College for All Texans. So if you get families or parents who are looking for information, you can always steer them there. Now, our dedicated financial aid services line is available from 8 to 5 each day. The only time we're not available is from 12 to 1, but that's a direct line to our team, so you can call if you have questions. The last way is our contact us. That's our system where you can write in when you have questions on specific scenarios and also loan requests. So I'm going to go through that. I do this, I think, for probably the last 3 years now. I've done this on my webcast. So if you've seen it, awesome. If you haven't seen it, then this is great because this is really important when you're submitting information or questions to us. So when you go to any of our websites and you click on the Contact Us link, some of our web pages, it says inquiries, then this form is going to pop up. And filling out this form is critical because if you don't do it correctly, then it gets routed to the wrong area and it just delays the response. So first and foremost, when it pops up, you'll want to designate that you are from an institution in the first box. In the second box, you'll type which institution you work for. It should have a little drop down as you start typing. But this is really important because our team sometimes is set up to take or field different types of institutions. For example, if you work for a private school, we may have one individual who works on those. So having the institution is very helpful. The contact reason, financial aid question, this is by far the one that I think gets missed the most because there's a long drop down of a whole variety of topics in there or reasons. But basically anything related to financial aid, whether it's a loan question, loan processing, you have question on your payments, you have questions on the guidelines, anything related to state financial aid, you want to select financial aid question. Otherwise, again, it goes to a different department and it takes time for them to route it over to our area. So for sure, make sure you put that in there. Your description does need to have as much information as possible. Please don't send sensitive information such as full social security numbers. You can put partial or you can do other reference information. And then the last thing I really wanted to point out outside of your normal contact information is your direct phone number. That helps us get in touch with you because while we do our ticketing system and we definitely like to have everything in writing, a lot of times it warrants a conversation so that we can understand all the details a little bit better. So having your direct line is really, really helpful. That will help us process your request that much faster. And since it's not required, I'm pointing it out so you can make sure you include it. Once you're done with the form, you hit submit, and then we will be responding to you once we have that answer for you. As a reminder, I think I mentioned this last time, we've been hiring more staff, so please give us grace at this time. We're a little bit short-staffed at the moment, and we are in the hiring process. So we've had a lot of people either be promoted or retire or seek out new opportunities. So right now we're in that kind of in-between stage, and of course it's the beginning of school. So lots and lots of things going on at the coordinating board, wonderful things, and we've got lots of fun projects in the pipeline to share with y'all. So as we continue through the year, we will have a few more webcasts before the holidays hit. So stay tuned. We'll continue to send those topics out to you. I don't see too many other questions in the chat box, but this is our opportunity. If you have additional questions, if you want to go ahead and type them in, we have plenty of time. I knew that this would be a shorter webcast, but I don't want to steal anyone's time if we're done, but if you have anything you want to go ahead and type in that chat box for the group, then we'll address those. And then if you don't, we will wrap up. But I see that Deshay has answered everything. So Deshay, can you confirm, were there any outstanding questions? I'll give her a second. Deshay is so great at this, by the way. She's just like, always on top of these questions and answers them so quickly. So I always appreciate that she's able to join. Great. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Well, I hope that you got some good information out of this webcast. As usual, we will be posting the video on our webcast page. It usually takes about a week for us to post that, along with a PDF copy. Again, if you need any additional information, feel free to send the contact us over to our department, and we will get back with you. But good luck with the start of school. Lots of encouraging times coming up. I know it's been a very, very, very difficult year, but this is the year. It's going to turn it all around. And I appreciate y'all's time and wish y'all the best of luck. Thank you so much. And again, Michelle, thank you, Michelle. She's there in her bubble. Are you there, Michelle?
I am. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.